Since the world's only Tu-25 was destroyed in Ukraine, his brother An-124 became the largest transport plane on Earth. In December 1982, An-124 completed its maiden flight. It has been more than 40 years. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, An-124 transport aircraft divided between Ukraine and Russia. Today we took it apart. Let's see what mysteries allowed the 6-ton steel behemoth to fly into the sky. During the Cold War, he was a monster transporting the war machine. But today his task is to transport oversized cargo. He is tailor-made for heavy cargo. The cockpit is taller than any other aircraft. It can accommodate 6 aircraft owners. Behind them is a cargo hold with a tie floor. There is still enough room for 3 Apache helicopters. A bicycle crane on the ceiling can lift 30 tons of heavy car wings faster than 3 tennis courts, carrying 4 giant jet engines. The combustion temperature exceeds 1,260 degrees Celsius. This flying behemoth can move large quantities of cargo faster and farther than any other machine. In Denver, Colorado, the world's largest wind turbine manufacturer, to ship a turbine mold from Shanghai, China to the factory within 4 days. Otherwise, his production line will stop running. Shipping is too late. Therefore, they can only choose to press 124 transport aircraft to fly to Shanghai, and the goods will be returned and unloaded within 72 hours. His pioneering space design was born out of war. In World War II, the Soviets had a big problem. Their Hokies were hard to land on the enemy's rough terrain. So, aeronautical engineer Oleg Antonov designed 71 gliders with very high wings, could make more room in the cargo hold. Able to avoid obstacles on landing, they built 400 of these. Wooden glider, so they can hide behind enemy lines and drop people and supplies. This design carried over all the way to the An-124. But this time, the cargo is only 2 meters shorter than the cargo hold. How the truck carried such a long cargo on the plane is the key. At this point, the advantages of the An-124 through hold are revealed. The tail door of this transport plane can be opened very large. It's big enough to swallow a bus. Hydraulic jacks open and close the hatch to allow access from under the aircraft. Also sitting behind the anterior nasal vertebrae are a pair of 2-meter-long hydraulic jacks. Inside them, the hydraulic piston pushes a pressure greater than that of a car crusher. Lift the whole nose. Open a ramp that allows the truck to travel directly. With these 2 additional features, this giant plane should be up to the job. At Shanghai Pudong Airport, the packaged turbine molds have been shipped to the tarmac. They dismantle them for shipping. Even so, one of them is longer than a Boeing 737. Combined, they weigh more than 15 tons. They tried to load from the front door. It's time for An-124 to perform a little talent. Powerful hydraulics push the entire front cone of the plane upward. The cockpit is suspended above the loading bay. To load the goods in, he still needs to make a big bow. Kneel by contracting the front wheel. Most aircraft can only move their wheels during flight. If they tried to recover the weight of the plane on the ground, it would crush the hydraulic system of the wheels. But this plane's kneeling ability was inspired by early elevators. The rope used to check heavy loads is easy to break, with catastrophic consequences. Some elevator designs address this issue. Use large upright screws. It can be easily moved by turning the screw. Heavy objects are not at risk of breaking the rope. This freighter uses the same principle. 2 huge screws turn slowly. Lift a 400-ton plane up and down without worrying about crashing. But when the truck carrying the molds pulled up to the plane, one of the trailers is too long, may get stuck at the top of the ramp, so they can only load from the back door. But he can kneel, but he cannot sit. The solution is built-in car cranes. There is a pulley system inside the cargo hook to help lift the load. Above them, the lazy rope lift is equipped with a powerful electric motor and the use of energy. Each can lift 10 tons of cargo across the metal slides. The crane can be flanked to accommodate the cargo. They can reach every corner and run the entire cargo hold. Deep into the tail can access the cargo below. Double crane using cargo hold. The staff loaded the 34-meter-long cargo onto the cargo plane. They have to hold the goods in exactly the right place. Uniform weight distribution. If the center of gravity of the plane suddenly changes during flight, the outcome could be catastrophic. In 2013, the effective engagement of this Afghan cargo plane loosened during takeoff, causing the aircraft to lose balance. The result was a crash. No one survived. The crew memorized every part of the cargo by weight. This is their last chance. They can't get close to the cargo on the plane after takeoff because the plane is too big. Impossible to pressurize his huge cargo hold. A normal airliner is sealed to maintain cabin pressure so that passengers and crew don't suffocate in the thin air 10,000 meters up. Too much pressure difference. Any large window or door will burst open, so they have to be as small as possible. But this monster's cargo door is 6 meters wide. If the cargo compartment is pressurized like the passenger compartment, the door will suddenly open, so lock down the cargo hold. Only pressurize the upper deck. Prohibit the cold and thin air in the cargo hold from entering the cabin. The plane was at its absolute heaviest before takeoff, loaded with billions of dollars worth of cargo and 800 liters of fuel to get 390 tons off the ground. The plane must drain every bit of power from its engines. Each large turbofan engine weighs up to 4 tons. Like a giant truck, their huge fan blades push air into 3 sets of compressor blades and finally into the combustion chamber. Plus fuel burning temperature over 1,260 degrees Celsius. Hot gas blasted from behind spins a set of turbines. Connect to the front fan, inhaling more air into the engine. Full speed forward 10. These monsters generate more thrust than 8 F-16 fighter jets. This An-124 needs 3.2 kilometers to take off. That's the length of the runway. He's gliding along at 200 kilometers an hour. Last takeoff. But to push this flying giant to cruising altitude, the pilot must rely on his specially shaped wings. The legacy of NASA. In the 1970s, some experimental aircraft are experiencing serious problems. As they approach the factor, they swoop down. NASA engineers discovered that this curved wing shape was the culprit. At high speeds, the turbulence from above pushes the plane down, so NASA flattens the top of the wing to smooth the airflow. They bend the back edge to generate larger life. Antonov used this delicate wing shape. Create greater vitality. Push its massive weight into the air, even fully loaded over Japan. The crew flew over Mount Fuji. This was the last piece of land they saw. Because they have to cross 8,000 kilometers of high seas, he had to eat to fly this far. Hidden under its aluminum skin is the key to moving large quantities of goods around the world. Through the wing is a huge fuel tank. It can carry over 200 tons of kerosene. Star-class partition walls prevent fuel from sloshing around the tank during flight. Valves between them allow the pilot to adjust the balance of each wing. Huge aluminum rods carry the weight of the fuel tank, makes the wings very strong. The fuel carried is more expensive than any other heavy truck. This machine can fly 14,500 kilometers non-stop. At an altitude of 11,000 kilometers, the temperature outside can reach minus 50 degrees Celsius. But the 4 engines on the plane have been running for 10 hours. The internal temperature of the engine is very high, so engine fire is very dangerous. The crew was powerless to resist. It's up to the plane itself to handle it. Sensors inside its engines can detect signs of fire at an early stage. They will set off an alarm and cut off fuel and power in milliseconds. If this doesn't stop the fire from spreading, a row of 6 high-pressure fire extinguishers can be triggered remotely. They shoot a plume of fire extinguisher gas directly into the engine. Suffocate a flame in seconds. This aerial fire extinguisher ensured the safety of the giant aircraft and its crew. As the light fades away in the Rocky Mountains, the 260-ton aircraft began its descent. But landing in such a high-altitude city adds more difficulty to the plane. Denver International Airport is located at the foot of the Rocky Mountains. The stream of air rolled down the runway below, hitting the plane. The most important thing is that the airport is 1,600 meters above sea level. The air is very thin. This means that the wings generate less lift. If you approach the plane at normal speed, it may descend too quickly, so the pilot has to accelerate to compensate. Then he doesn't have that much time to schedule the plane to land. There's also the risk of going off the runway, so they just approach the runway slowly. The crew may have a hard landing. This could spell disaster for their precious cargo of high experience. Now the crew must rely on the machine's military legacy, his oversized landing gear. This plane has 24 huge tires. There are also 12 shock absorbers to soften the landing. Each one contains a generation of compressed gas to cushion the impact of the landing. The sticky oil squeezes through a small gap. Stop the plane from rebounding. Heavy-duty carbon disc brakes are heated to nearly 300 degrees Celsius. It keeps swinging up and down to keep the wheels from slipping. And reinforced diluted tires. It can operate even on the roughest surfaces. Let this huge plane land anywhere. Finally, press 124 to safely return the goods. If you change the RV, can you use this plane to change a villa to have 2 large flat floors?